I'm Nina Gregory, and I'm moderating this conversation about AI for longevity, accelerating medical discovery. I'm really excited to introduce you to Joe Betts-Lacroix. He is the CEO of Retro Biosciences. We're going to chat for about 20-25 minutes, and we'll leave a few minutes afterwards for your questions. Joe has a staggering track record as an inventor and an entrepreneur. He's authored more than 100 patents and applications. While not the biggest achievement, perhaps his most fascinating, Joe holds a Guinness World Record for making the smallest Windows PC. How big was it?
About that big.
Oh my God, that's so cool. And where is it now?
Computer History Museum.
In the museum, and that's just so. You can go see Joe's tiny computer at the museum. That's very cool. Today we're going to talk about his current work, which is in the field of healthcare. Medical bills remain the #1 cause of bankruptcy for people in the United States, especially for older Americans. During the healthcare debates about a decade ago, we learned just how much Americans were spending on end-of-life care in particular. Retro Biosciences notes that over 90% of healthcare spending in the United States goes toward age-related diseases. That's about $3 trillion. While others have tried to solve this from a policy point of view, Joe, you wanted to take on the problem of aging itself. So where do you start? How do you focus?
What is aging? So I think the lens for how to approach it for me is, okay, there are all these age-related diseases. What is the common factor behind all of them? Well, there's this thing called aging. What is it? Oh, it turns out there's a whole very rich and legit academic field of aging biology and understanding how it works and testing it out in various different model organisms like worms and flies and fish and mice and rats and so on. And so by understanding where it comes from in the first place, it's almost like a fundamental thesis of like what we're all doing. We're about 75 people presently in Redwood City. To like we're looking for new therapeutics by finding targets and ways in through specifically understanding the biology of aging.
So you start with a body of knowledge that already exists, and what does that tell you about where you should focus your efforts?
Well, it's actually a great gift that we have this thing called academia for, as much as you want to complain about it, here we are at Stanford, it may be, some people may think of it as being inefficient, but it's an incredibly lovely and rarefied environment for people to dive into difficult problems that may or may not have benefits later down the line, and a lot of the times it does. And in this case, the body of knowledge on how organisms age is pretty rich, and so we typically start from there. Then we will move something, if something looks really exciting, like this might have a big impact on people, then we will try to replicate it in our own labs. We have a bunch of labs over in Redwood City. And
what technologies are you using in your lab? What exactly are you doing over there?
So many. It's a nerd
Give us
paradise.
a little peek into your laboratory, please, Doctor.
Oh, I would love to geek out on a long list of analytical tools, but we have really amazing imaging, so we can see, zoom into it like a single cell and see all the subparts of the cell, and all labeled by different colors and fluorescent labels that are attached to specific subparts of the cell that relate to the biology that we're exploring there. We have a mouse research facility, a computational group. We have an amazing AI group that's been making strides in being able to predict new kinds of human proteins that turn out to work better than existing human proteins.
I want to pause on proteins for a minute. I think that's a very interesting area of exploration. A Nobel Prize, right, was just given in chemistry for were they mapping the protein folding?
For sure. Yeah.
And so is this an area where you feel that AI has an outsized impact versus other areas?
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about what you're seeing there?
AI is crushing it in the protein space, for sure. Yeah, so AlphaFold was an amazing landmark for humanity. It was the first time we could sort of have any idea how you could go from like the sort of linear code of sort of DNA or amino acid sequence, which is essentially the same thing, to what is the little 3D machine that actually does stuff inside your body, like
And
how it
changes
forms the 3D shape.
shape.
Yeah, so it can
Yeah.
predict the 3D shape, which is
And
amazing. That's the first time.
so
But that's one component. So people have now like probably use this millions of times, and it's proliferated as like as a tool that people can
this
use.
is old news.
Well,
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Everything is getting now older while it's younger because
Faster.
technology is accelerating.
And this is because
now
of
something
AI?
is like some AI thing that's a year old. Everybody's like, that's a year old. What are you talking about?
And so you're in an academic place which is traditionally known to work at a different pace, or, I mean, how are you allowed to be nimble, do you feel?
Well, allowed.
Do you
sort
have
of a
the
supervisory ring to it.
No, I mean, do you feel like you have enough of a cushion in your lab that you can be, you feel like you can explore vastly, or does AI help you? One of the themes I've heard over these past 2 days is AI being used in identifying what problems to solve, because there might be so much data that where do we focus? We don't know.
Just touching on aloud for a second, we have a very privileged and unique opportunity to do biotech at the speed that we absolutely want to. Like presently, our only investor is Sam Altman, who is very like LFG. Let's build it. Let's go.
Right. Yeah, so that's
speed,
important
the
to have
need for speed.
somebody who understands the need for speed supporting you to do this. That's cool.
Totally. And and so we can pursue the things that we think have the highest leverage for making a difference too.
So thinking of successes, but also thinking of failures. How do you decide when something is a failure? Like, when do you pull the plug? How do you know when to pull the plug?
It's like big pharma companies have a formula for it. Like condition X, Y, Z, W all fail, then you shut down the program. So I'd say it's a little more intuitive for us. Part of it is like an expected value calculation, right? So that you multiply the probability of success times how big the prize is, and failures happen along the way like crazy, and that's like how we work. It's like wired into our culture is that you should iterate on things. So you should dive in, try it. Probably it's not going to work. You're going to learn a ton, then dive in and try it a second time. By the third time, probably it's going. If you keep going like that, and it's looking like it's just like this whole path is going to be really hard. You're not super inspired by what may be on the far end. Then shut it down. We've done that a bunch.
Okay, so you're the CEO of Retro Biosciences. What's the story behind the name of your company? What is Retro?
Retro is Latin for reverse. So I have a bias toward things that reverse aging, because I'm kind of impatient. So I would like loosely categorize all the sort of aging biology interventions into two categories of things that slow down aging, which you need to start young and take them for a very, very long time, and then there's some difference at the end, right? Or things that reverse aging. And one of the reasons besides being impatient, that I'm biased toward them is it's easier to do clinical trials in them. So you can take a group of people, perform some age-reversing intervention on them, and then measure them after the intervention, because there's lots of ways to measure aging in like organismally and subcellularly, and be like, worked, or eh.
Can you give us an example of one of these kinds of reverse aging experiments?
So many. So one of them that we're working on right now is a small molecule drug that restores the autophagy process, which is a natural recycling process inside all of our cells of basically every living thing that takes the old broken proteins especially and breaks them back down into amino acids so that they can be reused again, because after a while they kind of wear out like pretty much everything. And in advanced age, or especially in a lot of age-related degenerative diseases, such as, for instance, Alzheimer's, this autophagy process gets stalled, and these aggregates and gunk starts building up in the cells, which eventually gets in the way. And so there's a bunch of pathologies associated with that. And
That's so exciting. You have such a quiet voice, and this is such a big statement. Okay.
Well, it will be.
Can we pause here for a moment? I feel like you're talking about cures for Alzheimer's here.
Yeah, we have two programs that we're working on.
That's fascinating. Can you tell us about the other one a little bit?
Oh yeah, so the other one is replacing one of the 4 fundamental cell types of the brain called microglia. There's like, oligodendrocytes, astrocytes, neurons, which everybody's heard of, and microglia. They are the one that is actually replaceable, which is an exciting modality for me because biology is really complicated, despite all these academics which have been working on it for forever. And so it's hard to like reverse aging of the cell itself, the same cell. It's so much easier to start off with a fresh, brand new zero-age cell and just swap them out.
So
you don't have to understand it.
Generation of new cells.
Yeah, so we can make new cells. We make new human cells in our lab. And the cool thing about this is based on another Nobel Prize by Yamanaka lab in Japan, 2006, where they figured out that you could take an adult cell, apply these things now called Yamanaka factors, and reprogram the cell back to a pluripotent stem cell, which is where we all come from. We're all made from a single pluripotent stem cell.
Wait,
Yay.
so that's a reality. That has happened.
Yeah, every one of us. I mean, the reason that babies aren't these creepy like 30-year-old things that pop out, but they're actually like zero age, is because there's a process when the 2 cells get together and they reprogram, from the mom and the dad, and resets the age to 0. And so we do that in our lab. We can take cells, reprogram them back to 0 age, and
then put them.
Well,
do what?
you can't put them back into the body as pluripotent stem cells because the job of a pluripotent stem cell, as everybody knows, is to make a person. So you don't want to put these cells inside you that start making a person, because like one person's enough. 1 person per person.
I don't know. It sounds interesting.
Like that's the number.
I think you should try this.
But you take the pluripotent stem cell and then you so-called redifferentiate that back into a cell type, the so-called adult cell type. That knows its function, for instance.
So like pre-age.
Knows how to be like a blood stem cell, for instance, or a microglia, or things that have a stable function. We need our cells to be differentiated, so we have like cells that make our eyes work that are very different from the cells in our liver, et cetera. They all have the same DNA, but they've gotten different epigenetic programming that teaches them how to do this.
So reverse aging, can you? It sounds like more like an intervention of maybe introducing a new cell as opposed to reverse aging.
So we break it down into either you can reverse the age of existing cells, which is hard but doable to some degree. For instance, our autophagy drug, or replacement.
Replacement.
And the easiest things to replace are like single cells, just cells at a time. For instance, you can replace like blood stem cells. That's one of our programs. Swaps out your old, say, 90-year-old blood stem cells and puts in 0 age. Actually, by the time we're done differentiating them, et cetera, they're like 1.4 years old epigenetic age. But and the microglia are also replaced as a single cell process, as individual cells, rather than complex 3-dimensional tissues, which are harder. Like for instance, you could take like a young person's heart and transplant it into an old person, and then they have a young heart, which is probably great for the old person, but it's just an awkward supply chain. Like, where do it's inelegant. That's what
Well, I remember years ago at TED, I think somebody grew like a liver on stage. I don't know if anybody was here for that. It was some crazy, it was like this, I think it was the same year that the people that mapped the human genome came out and brought that on stage. If anybody was in the room, you remember, I think. I mean, I don't know if it worked or whatever, what kind of liver this is. But in thinking about going back to the public health issue of aging, and certainly in this country and in many other countries, aging is a public health issue. How we are able to care for our aging populations, especially as we see some of these diseases of aging What other diseases are you concerned about? Obviously, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. In terms of diseases of aging, I guess you would probably consider cancer a disease of aging.
Horrifically, yeah.
And
Like all of the
else?
ones that like make you not a person anymore or kill you.
all of them. So all of them.
Well, the ones that occur late in life. There's, for instance, all kinds of things that younger people get, like tragically. Like acute leukemias and various kinds of like rare genetically defined disorders, and there are things that occur relatively uniformly statistically across the life course, which are horrible, but they're not specifically in scope for us because
Like heart disease.
yeah, like heart disease is not that uniformly distributed. It tends to increase with age, and kills like half the people. So it's definitely something that we'd love to do something about at some point. But it's one of the things that I also consider to be kind of my job or our job is to focus on the things that have the highest leverage for us to work on. Turns out there's like many billions of dollars already being spent every year on heart disease. So that's good.
But is there something that your expertise, the AI, the lab, the moment might be able to bring to that hasn't been available before technologically to unlock some new solution or cure or
We
treatment?
definitely have some future plans that could make a difference in cardiovascular disease. They're not present clinical programs.
And so how do you as a CEO, I mean, those are really heady decisions to make. Heart disease, we'll put that off to Q3. Right? How do you decide where to focus? Those are big problems to solve.
I come out of the venture world, past at Y Combinator, doing multiple startups, investing in startups. Part of it, just to be honest, is there a human driver who's super excited about this? Is one of the factors. And it's like, yeah, there's like 20 next programs that we could work on, and working on different facets of aging, different diseases, different modalities. How do we choose which ones? Some of them there's just like an incredibly talented, driven, passionate, dedicated person who is attached to one of them that is one fantastic idea and program that should happen, and another one that's like, there's nobody that driven behind it. Like, I'm obviously going to go for the first one.
In a way, it's like what the Gates Foundation did, right? Bill Gates was very focused on vaccines. He really took, and he's talked about that at TED too, about sort of his approach to deciding why he chose vaccines. I think if I recall correctly, he wanted to find a problem he could solve that would have an outsized.
They're high leverage. Like,
Right.
you can give one injection once and prevent a lifetime of disease exposure, and huge, horrible, debilitating, heavily disadvantaging diseases. So yeah, that's a really good leverage point.
And so, are you spending a lot of your time personally, thinking about Alzheimer's? Are you thinking about disease? Are you thinking about, what do you do? What do you think about?
I think about so many things. I have an incredible job, super lucky. But in terms of like where my mental bandwidth goes, I love working with our teams. I have like,
When you say you have
I have
75?
like 15 direct reports, and we have like teams doing lots of incredibly hard jobs.
And that's energizing. It must be to be around.
Yeah, because I get to work with
yeah.
incredibly talented people who are energetic and excited about what they're doing and like making a difference, and at the edges of their abilities. So I get to be surrounded by people who are growing before my very eyes, and I do my damnedest to grow alongside them, because the company is scaling at the same time. So I get to think about all these different technical realms, which is juicy because then my brain likes it, and then also thinking about impact. We have a rubric that we use for defining which programs are worthy of us applying huge amounts of opportunity cost to millions of dollars and many team members, and putting like risk of the company on the line and like all that stuff. It's like a very, like you said, it's like a heavy decisions. I mean, exciting decisions that we have the privilege to make, so we weigh. Well, let's say this particular program X, supposing it's incredibly successful, how is our overall health better for everyone on the planet? Okay, that's huge. Does it have like a 0.01% chance of succeeding? Like, does it have like an actual indication that you could do an initial clinical trial in? Is there a plausible, is the intervention itself plausible? Does the mechanism understood? Could it be ultimately used preventatively is a big one for us.
Preventing Alzheimer's? Maybe?
Yeah, I mean, just waiting until people get sick and then trying to unsick them is so much harder. I think ultimately, or speaking of leverage, if people can have disease preventatives, or specifically if ultimately some things that intervene in aspects of aging can be applied before they get a disease of aging. The way the arithmetic works, there are typically multiple downstream age-related diseases that can be prevented or delayed, and every moment of delay is like a huge amount of human thriving.
There was a documentary that Michael J. Fox made a few years ago about his Parkinson's, and what's very interesting about him, as opposed to anybody else with Parkinson's, is that his entire life has been captured on film or video. And he believes that he was experiencing symptoms of Parkinson's as early as like his early 20s, I think he said. And you can see it in some of the shows where he's like, look at my hand on the one where he's the advertising exec in like the 90s. It was pretty interesting. And so to think about an early intervention, how early? What does that mean? When do we, what is that, how do we know when?
So I think all of these therapeutics in some ways tend to work backward in time, like based on the regulatory environment, FDA or other health authorities in different jurisdictions, and we're making like definitely like complex, brand new, frankly risky at the beginning interventions. You need a specific disease to treat. They're not going to approve it for like, oh, maybe this preventative thing that can possibly help healthy people stay healthy longer. Not a thing. So you start with people who are actually having the disease, but then ultimately
it's like an early intervention.
And preferably relatively severe, because who should try something risky are people who have like a lot to lose or lots to gain. And then if it's safe and effective there, then move it backward in time to like when people are just starting to experience the symptoms or the effect of the disease, but that can still be categorized as, yeah, you have X. And then ultimately move back even farther. Say, okay, you're not actually manifesting this disease, but you're in, say, a risk category for it.
This is like a vaccine?
Vaccine would be an example of like an ultimately preventative thing, usually they're purely preventative. There are some where people say like, oh, I stepped on a rusty nail, and they're like, oh, let's give you a tetanus vaccine, ASAP, which mostly doesn't even help with that particular event, but it's just their opportunity to get you in there and give you a tetanus vaccine for the next time you step on a rusty nail, because otherwise nobody bothers to go in and get it. But apparently there is some slight effect. If it's a very delayed reaction, you can start to have a tiny bit of immunity from that vaccine. But mostly vaccines are purely preventative.
Okay, purely preventative. So, in terms of Alzheimer's, I'm curious if there's something that you see on the horizon that you're really excited about in terms of treating it.
I mean, there are definitely a lot of companies out there trying things out in the clinic. I don't know enough about their specific interventions.
How about in your lab?
Because people are, rightfully so, reasonably
sure, that makes sense.
about their. But I would say that of course I'm like incredibly thrilled about both of our Alzheimer's programs. The first one's going to be in humans later this year. So
It's going to be in humans later this year.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay, tell us. What does that mean?
I mean, it's the classic, biopharma process where you do, preclinical, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, all that. So we're doing our phase 1 later this year.
Wow, that's exciting. Good luck. We hope this works, right? We hope they all work.
For sure. Absolutely.
Have you yourself ever used any sort of, age-preventing interventions?
Every day.
Okay.
I know people will try to sell you, $70,000 like stem cell treatments where they take something from, I don't know, from your butt. And put it in
You
your
hear
face
about
or
all these
something
crazy
like
things, right?
But,
and even like when you have a baby and they collect the stems, like it doesn't apparently.
That could possibly be useful for a little while longer. Although now we're getting pretty good at making.
Yeah.
Like, in fact, Retro is really good at making the main type of cells that people would typically.
So if we didn't do that, we don't need to worry about that.
Hopefully we can outmode that pretty soon.
Okay, cool.
But I think that probably the main aging intervention that we have right now is pretty inexpensive. It's like daily exercise. It's just awkward. Again, it's another awkward thing. It's just like, you're not just like chilling with your friends and like, boop, you pop it. It's like, no, we all have to go to this special place and like sweat and like
How much
suffer.
more effective is that than some intervention? Do you test? Are you like,
It is so effective that every single time I go to some aging biology conference, and I love going to aging biology conferences because I'm a nerd at heart. You see like the exercise and the non-exercise. It's like very common to say like, wait, exercise does that? It's so much. It's a little bit kind of annoying that a lot of research in academia is done in mice, and the people who run those studies are usually a little too lazy to put an exercise wheel in the mouse cages. So we're kind of like doing a lot of our testing.
More like us.
Kind of, yeah.
Not running on that wheel.
That's the argument that's the argument for doing it in a way. It's like, yeah, but we're making therapies for Americans, so.
Where are those mice on the couch? But I don't think you answered the question. Have you taken any of these other than exercise? I mean something one of these cutting edge.
No, I don't do any of the sort of like weird longevity bro things. Like
I guess one example I think also, this was a TED, sorry.
Whatever.
But they had this thing that was called a NanoV where it was like you breathe it in and it's some kind of protein folding. I don't really know what it does or if it works.
Interesting if true.
Interesting if true. So yeah, that's what I mean. Have you tried any of these kinds of things that are like, in your community of people working on this?
I mean, I kind of look at it as like, either it probably does absolutely nothing, in which case why do it, or it's actually a pretty strong intervention of some kind, and then it's like, do I want to do that to myself? So then I'm going to read about it, and try to understand what is the evidence base for this working or not working, or maybe hurting me.
Not just the discomforts of old age. You're looking at the serious.
Like for instance, like people are trying to sell these like red light baths for rejuvenating you, and I'm just like, I don't think it's going to hurt you. There's a fair amount of red light.
Have you tried one?
And like there's red light in that.
And so what's the science on the red light mask? Many women would like to know, self-included.
I've never seen any strong positive evidence of efficacy for that. So I just like.
And a lot of physical therapists are using this too. And I think there's become this idea that this red light therapy is something that can help.
Well, it's very photogenic. I mean, like when you're getting it, everything's red. Like.
Are there therapies that what they're
doing
saying
something for my health? Like,
is that it's like rebuilding collagen and it's doing.
Might be, but I just haven't seen any strong evidence for it.
This is so interesting. We have time for a couple of questions if anybody would like to. Yes, Miss. No,
okay.
Pardon me. Forgive. I took up all the time. You can meet him outside.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Damn, I love a red light mask.